feeding him. And certainly a court case a while back established that. And in this book, it's brutal, isn't it, Poppy, about Kate calling her cold and lazy?
I mean, is Kate a little bit cold and lazy? I don't know. I don't want to come on this programme and trash another woman, but she's not my fave royal.
OK. Who would be your favourite, Andrew?
Well, it would be Meghan. Andrew?
Meghan?
Why would Andrew be my favourite royal? Why did your mind go to Andrew? He's the least favourite royal in the history of
no idea.
royals.
OK,
well, at least we can agree on the least favourite royal. But have you met any of the royals?
No, you said Meghan, though.
I do like Meghan. Meghan, they had a chance to modernise the royal family. And they
she
really
blew it.
royally... Well, no, the royal family blew it.
No, she blew it.
No, I mean, OK.
James...
Why do you think she blew it?
She may have been blown away herself. That's the point Poppy's making.
I understand that point, but I think...
What do you think about Kate?
So have you met any of the royals? Or...
Unlike you, James, I've not had the...
No, so I haven't spent that much time with her. But if anybody says, oh, she's cold, she's really not cold.
I'm sure she's not cold. Why would she be cold with you? She's probably...
the thing is, the book is saying that she's
write
cold.
that she was cold with you. She wrote that she was cold with Meghan, which absolutely could...
Well, I'm not surprised.
And lazy, and has been infantilised by the media. This is Kate described by Scobie, and has been given really rubbish jobs by the royals. Although the last one I'm not sure about.
I'm not sure. I think she's got some very interesting roles. And I think also the book is a desperate cry for money from Scobie. That's what it is.
Isn't every book about the royals a desperate cry for money?
Isn't every book a desperate cry for money?
Sometimes they are. But I think this particular book, I think the first one... I think was an opportunity for Harry and Meghan, and it was a mouthpiece, and it was an opportunity, and it aired stuff that we hadn't seen before. I think this one, if the first one was interesting and...
The Jeremy Vine show on Channel 5 was buzzing with yet another royal discussion, this time revolving around Omid Scobie's explosive new book, Endgame. The headlines had already made the rounds. The Princess of Wales branded as cold, part-time, and distant from Meghan's cries for help. The framing alone rattled royal loyalists. But on the show, something even more interesting happened. Jeremy Vine, as always, tried to prod his panelists into revealing their own leanings, and that's when one of the lady panelists surprised him by declaring that her favorite royal is Meghan. Vine looked visibly shocked, as if he couldn't quite comprehend that Meghan could be someone's top choice in a Britain where the media has spent years vilifying her. But the panelist explained her reasoning with clarity. She was a Republican, and even from that perspective, she found Meghan more relatable, more human, more in tune with modern Britain than the Windsor machine could ever allow Kate to be. And in that single moment, the gulf between Meghan Sussex and Kate Middleton was laid bare for anyone watching. A gulf that Endgame amplified, and that can't be papered over by the monarchy's PR machine. When Scobie described Kate as cold in the book, it wasn't just a cheap swipe. It was a reflection of a reputation that has been whispered for years. Kate has long been depicted as the poised but impenetrable royal consort, the one who can smile for the cameras, yet maintain a frosty wall to those she doesn't approve of. Even the media, which usually shields her, occasionally lets the mask slip. Remember the weighty Katie headlines, the endless discussions about her lack of work ethic, the accusations that she scheduled too few engagements compared to others? This wasn't invented out of thin air. It's a pattern. The truth is, Kate has been infantilized by the press, painted as a Stepford wife, someone whose primary value lies in waiting, marrying, producing heirs, and smiling at events. And when she is criticized, when words like lazy or cold surface, the establishment rallies around her, painting her as the victim of unfair attacks. But what the book does is hold up a mirror and say, this isn't all unfairness. Some of this reflects how Kate operates, and more importantly, how the institution uses her image as a perfect silent consort to uphold a crumbling monarchy. Now contrast that with Meghan Sussex. Meghan came into the family as an accomplished, independent woman. She wasn't a Stepford wife. She was an actress, an activist, a humanitarian. She had spoken at the United Nations before she ever set foot in Kensington Palace. She was articulate, engaged, and used to standing on her own 2 feet. And yet the very things that made Meghan extraordinary were recast as threats once she married into the royal family. Suddenly, being confident was pushy. Having a voice was difficult. Defending herself became diva-like. Meghan wasn't cold. She was warm, vibrant, and open. That openness, however, clashed violently with an institution that prizes silence, obedience, and a carefully choreographed kind of femininity. Kate was applauded for doing less, for keeping quiet, for being seen and not heard. Meghan was demonized for doing more, for daring to speak, for refusing to shrink herself to fit the mold. And this is what makes the panelists' comment on Jeremy Vine so important. She was, by her own admission, a Republican, someone who doesn't believe in the monarchy as an institution. Yet even with that perspective, she found Meghan relatable. Why? Because Meghan represents something deeply human. Meghan wasn't raised to be silent or servile. She was raised to believe she had worth, that her voice mattered, and that women should participate fully in shaping their societies. That's why, even as a royal, Meghan took on issues like women's empowerment, racial equality, and mental health advocacy. Kate, by contrast, often appears to glide along with causes chosen for her, carefully curated and managed by advisors, rarely taking risks or pushing uncomfortable truths. That doesn't make Kate evil, but it does make her look cold compared to Meghan's warmth, especially when Meghan openly admitted her struggles, including suicidal thoughts, only to be met with silence from the palace and apparent indifference from her sister-in-law. What's brutal, as Jeremy Vine said during that broadcast, isn't that Kate is called cold. What's brutal is how quickly people rush to defend Kate against that word, while refusing to extend the same compassion to Meghan, who has been called far worse. Meghan was branded manipulative, narcissistic, a social climber, and worse, day after day, headline after headline. Where were the outraged commentators then? Where were the sympathetic newspaper spreads decrying those attacks as unfair or brutal? They didn't exist, because for Meghan, cruelty was fair game, but for Kate, even a hint of criticism is treated as scandalous. That double standard is glaring, and it reveals how the monarchy and its media allies assign value. Kate is to be protected at all costs, while Meghan was sacrificed to preserve the image of the crown. The contrast also extends to how both women are presented to the world. Kate is portrayed as the dutiful wife, the mother of the future king's children, and a steady, silent figure of continuity. Meghan is portrayed as disruptive, emotional, outspoken, and nonconformist. But here's the twist. In the modern world, Meghan's qualities resonate more. The Republican panelist understood this intuitively. In a Britain grappling with inequality, diversity, and mental health crises, Meghan's candidness and her willingness to break the silence make her relatable. Kate's silence, by contrast, reads not as elegance but as detachment. That's why Scobie's description of Kate as cold lands, because in the age of authenticity, silence can feel like indifference. Think about how Meghan's authenticity shone through in moments that really should have been celebrated, but, were twisted against her. When she spoke about struggling with mental health during pregnancy, she broke a taboo. She humanized herself. But instead of being praised, she was vilified. When she showed compassion for communities, like when she cooked with the women of the Hub Community Kitchen after the Grenfell Tower fire, her project was minimized in the press, treated as a side hobby rather than an act of leadership. Contrast that with Kate's engagements, which often involve ribbon-cutting ceremonies and photo opportunities. The media will gush about Kate's outfits, her poise, her stability, but rarely does it highlight lasting projects with the same intensity. Meghan was building legacies. Kate was being displayed. That's the difference, and it's why calling Kate cold isn't just an insult, but an observation about how she has chosen, or maybe even been forced, to present herself in the monarchy. Even on the global stage, the differences are honestly stark. Meghan and Harry command attention in America, in Africa, in Europe, not because they cling to titles, but because they speak about universal human concerns. They're invited to speak at conferences, to launch foundations, to inspire change. Kate, meanwhile, is tied to the palace walls. Her role is confined to Britain, to the endless cycle of photo ops, gala events, and appearances that maintain tradition but don't really move the needle. Meghan thrives in freedom. Kate survives in captivity. And in that contrast, one looks cold and distant, the other looks warm and alive. When the Republican panelist admitted Meghan was her favorite royal, she wasn't just making a throwaway comment. She was speaking a truth that, honestly, many feel but few say on air. Meghan resonates more than Kate because Meghan is more human. It wasn't about loving the monarchy. It was about preferring a figure who embodies modern values over one who represents outdated obedience. And that is exactly why the establishment despises Meghan. Because if Meghan is allowed to shine, she exposes the flaws of the monarchy and the insufficiency of figures like Kate. Meghan shows what royalty could be: engaged, authentic, global, diverse. Kate shows what royalty is: cold, controlled, ornamental. This is what Omid Scobie's endgame cracked open, and why the establishment is, well, so desperate to shut it down. But once you've seen the contrast, you can't unsee it. You can't watch Meghan hugging children, speaking with honesty, supporting grassroots projects, and then look at Kate's carefully curated silence without noticing the difference. One is warm, one is cold, one is real, one is constructed. And as that Jeremy Vine panelist proved, even Republicans who don't care for the monarchy can spot who the real human being is in that equation. And it's Meghan Sussex.